it looks more and more likely that Deandre Ayton could be available for other franchises to get, possibly like the Charlotte Hornets. We'll talk about some fake trades and whether Deandre Ayton is worth it today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Local experts on the #1 daily sports podcast network. We're free. We're available wherever you get your pods. That includes YouTube. I'm Walker Mail. In case you don't know, I've covered Charlotte sports for a while now, different media outlets. Doug Branson, that's Doug Branson, the founder of this podcast, the OG member on this pod.
That's how I get my family to refer to me now as well. They don't OG. Say. Yeah, even my child, I'm not going for dad. I'm trying to get her to say founder of the Locked On Hornets podcast. It's going to take her a while, but I know she'll get there.
Doug Branson, OG, founder of the Locked On Hornets pod, grandmama. But that's only if we get 1,000 likes on Facebook. I did like somebody put on YouTube. We're going to get to your questions, by the way. We've got a lot of good ones. We don't do a great job at getting to them throughout the week. We used to do a mailbag episode. Maybe we just throwing that out there at you, Doug. Maybe we bring that back in some capacity.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, are there even mailbags anymore? Like, what is that? It just seems like such an anachronistic thing.
In the podcast universe, there is, though.
Well, and I'm ready. So I'm ready to move into the future. I'm ready to throw that out. And I'm telling you, go to Twitter, tweet at us your questions, #Hive Live. We've got this new service that we can get these up on the screen in a much more efficient way. Not a mailbag, but a tweet storm. That's what I want.
Send in your tweets via the tweet storm. We're going to answer your questions with whatever title we want to give it. We're going to try to do that more. We're going to do that, I think, in the second or third. I have some fake trades that I've gathered from the Twitter sphere as well. I'm going to pose them to Doug and see if he agrees to them. But
love a good fake trade.
Yeah, I did see a YouTube comment. Hey, is Facebook still a thing? You guys make a TikTok. I'm good on that, man. Facebook is still a thing. And apparently it's still doing some good stuff for us. Hopefully you can do some good stuff on Facebook. Like it. See Doug wear grandmama suit and look exactly like Larry Johnson. All right, let's get to Deandre Ayton, Doug, because this is someone that we've kind of been pining for a while now. That center, at least, that position. And then we've even talked about the idea ever since Deandre Ayton did not sign that max contract extension and the Phoenix Suns didn't extend it to him. He'd always kind of been in the consciousness of conversation, if you will, right? Like we've kind of talked about him every now and then, but never with any real sincerity because the likelihood was always extremely slim, except now. And Deandre Ayton has an ugly breakup in the last game of that Dallas Mavericks series where Monty Williams, one of the most beloved overall dudes in the NBA, he is saying we're going to keep this internal. He had beef with Deandre Ayton over on the sideline in that last game in the Mavericks series. So it looks like he's going to be out of that Suns organization. His agent came out and said they were disappointed when they weren't offered the max contract. Some other franchise is probably going to give that to him because he is that talented of a player. And so Charlotte, having a huge need at center that we've talked about for the last 5 years at least, it would be a match made in heaven, at least with the way we've talked about this for a while. What do you think the likelihood is, before we play you some sound bites from Brandon Clean of Locked On Suns, what do you think the likelihood is that he leaves Phoenix, Doug, and maybe Charlotte can go get him?
Well, so I think the likelihood that he's out of Phoenix is pretty high at this point. It's not just this past series against the Dallas Mavericks that is the problem area for DeAndre Ayton and the Suns. There have been multiple issues over the course of his career. I mean, you remember in the second season, he got suspended for like a quarter of that season. That was Monty Williams' first year. And there have just been issues there's just been, and that was for a diuretic. It was like, yeah, it was PEDs. So, he's had those kind of issues, but hasn't had anything since. But there have been questions about his overall commitment with that particular organization. So I think the likelihood of a change of scenery is quite high. I think the likelihood, I have to put it at low. I mean, I have to put that percentage somewhere in the, below 33% because I just haven't seen any evidence that Charlotte is really willing to sacrifice what you need to sacrifice to get yourself into the conversation. And there will be multiple franchises, including the team that just dispensed with Phoenix. I mean, Dallas needs an option there at center. Dwight Powell is getting really taken apart in this Golden State series. So there will be multiple suitors, and I think the Hornets would have to pay a premium to get into that conversation. Are they willing to do it? I haven't seen any evidence that suggests they are.
Well, I want to talk about the trade package because I've seen things reported all over the place, and I have no clue anymore what it would take to go get DeAndre Ayton. But we have some sound bites. So do we have multiple, or do we just have the one from Brandon Clean of Locked On Suns?
So we've got a couple here. I went scouring for some knowledge from the Locked On Podcast Network, from Locked On Suns and Brandon Clean. This first one I thought was interesting. He talked about, part of DeAndre Ayton's issue with the Suns right now is how he fits within the offense that's, commanded by it's commanded by Chris Paul. I mean, Devin Booker requires a lot of shots, but Chris Paul is really the facilitator to, how much goes to DeAndre Ayton and how much goes to Devin Booker. And so there could be some issues there. And then Brandon also talks about what kind of asset the Suns would be looking to get back in a possible trade. So here he is.
Ayton wasn't at his best in large part because his offense has been so dependent on Chris's. So the idea that Chris is just going to be able to continue to be the guy into his late 30s that can turn any old player into a star at the center spot, I don't think is a realistic way to plan any of the contingency plans and the future of this franchise. That doesn't seem realistic at all. You need, if you're going to move on from Ayton, whether you get this player back in a trade directly like Capella might be, or you get a different type of player, which Jake goes into in the next section, which I'll read in the next segment, who is more on the wing. Whatever way you go with the trade, your replacement center for Ayton needs to be a guy who fits with Devin Booker on offense. And he needs to be a player who fits how Monty Williams wants the team to play. That means high IQ, good screener, good rebounder, somebody who can, run a little bit, somebody who has the versatility along with that IQ to execute a lot of different roles like DeAndre Ayton.
So to me, Walker, that last part there about the wing with the high IQ that can run a little bit, that can play with Devin Booker, that, and he was referring to the report from Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report and the podcast, Please Don't Aggregate This, which of course we all aggregate. But that wing to me, Walker, sounds a lot like Miles Bridges.
Yeah, I thought of two players that fit a little bit of what he was talking about there, and PJ Washington was the other one. You talk about high IQ, good screener, versatility that would match a lot of what DeAndre Ayton provides for that Phoenix team. And I want to talk about the wide range of trade packages because, shout out to NBC, right? WCNC here. We're partners with them. Shout out Tegna, Team Tegna here on the Locked On Podcast Network. They put out a write-up of our conversation a couple of episodes ago about the likelihood that DeAndre Ayton might be leaving Phoenix and what Charlotte would have to give up. So at the time, I thought 2 first-round picks and Miles Bridges or PJ Washington, that would be the real starting point for any negotiations that could be had. And you and I both are on record saying we don't think this deal could get done without Miles Bridges. But Doug, we're going to go down some of the fake trades in the next segment, and none of them match the type of haul that we thought it would take to just get Phoenix answering the phone call. And none of these things that we're talking about in the next segment are actually that much, which kind of makes it hard for me to turn down any of these proposed deals by whatever writer that we're talking about. Like Miles Bridges is really tough to the point where I don't think I would do it. Just giving up Miles, that one's the toughest one for me because I just think, for all the reasons we've talked about for why he showed out this year, because wings, strong, athletic wings are really valuable in this league, especially one where we don't think he's reached the ceiling, right? Plus the whole LaMelo factor, I think that's enough to go ahead and hold on to. I just thought that was going to be the starting negotiation point to the only thing they would accept Do you still view that Miles has to be involved in this for Phoenix to agree to it?
I think it makes it easier for Phoenix to swallow because you're getting a player that does have the potential to be an all-star in exchange for a player that also has the potential to be an all-star. And I think the mood in Phoenix right now is that they're really questioning because of how those playoffs ended. They're really questioning what they could get back, and if they are just sort of stuck with Deandre Ayton and have to make the best of the situation. The problem with removing or sending Miles Bridges in that kind of deal, Walker, is that suddenly you create another problem in that, you really depended a lot on Miles's scoring ability and that increase in his scoring ability last season. How do you replace that? And I mean, the natural place you would look is the one player that's on your roster currently that a lot of people don't want on the roster, and that's Gordon Hayward. I mean, you would really, if you trade Miles Bridges in a deal to bring in Deandre Ayton, you are essentially saying, ooh, we hope Gordon Hayward doesn't get hurt again, because that would be really bad. So there's another clip I want to play, not in this segment, in the next segment, where Brendan Clean really goes over the questions that he still has about Deandre Ayton. Deandre Ayton is not a guarantee to come into this organization and play at an all-star level. There are some questions, and I think those questions are part of those questions back up what I'm saying about Gordon Hayward, because he's not an elite, like Deandre Ayton is not going to be an elite scorer.
Well, but here's the good news, though. Brandon Clean was talking about how the Phoenix Suns need to replace what Ayton provided for them, and the fact that some of the worries about Ayton was that he relies so much on Chris Paul. Good news is we are operating here in Charlotte that LaMelo Ball is going to be a long-term future piece, which is a great point guard, which makes other players better, and that would include Deandre Ayton. So when Deandre Ayton plays with, yes, a point guard, right, a legendary player at that position, we expect LaMelo. I don't know. I'm not here to rank Chris Paul and whether LaMelo could be the next Chris Paul. We know LaMelo is going to be a fantastic point guard in the future. So DeAndre Ayton could come in and still benefit from a great player with the basketball in his hands quite a bit. That's the good news, right? Like there's not risk there. You're going to get somebody that is going to be in a comfortable situation to still perform very well. Let's get to some more DeAndre Ayton conversation coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. We have more Brandon Clean sound to get to, and then I have fake trades. I have 3. I've got one of my own, right? 3 that I've collected from different media outlets, and then I have one of my own I'm going to post to Doug to see what he would do if he was Mitch Kupchak, the general manager of the Charlotte Hornets. Let's talk about Built Bar. Look, I love brownies, but you know what I love more? I love brownie batter even more. Sometimes I eat half the batter just while I'm making the brownies. Imagine if you could lick that brownie spatula clean and get some protein in. That's right, you're in luck, because Built Bar has a new creation, and this one is better than ever. The Brownie Batter Puff. You heard me right. This puff takes protein bars to a whole new level, and they're available right now on Built.com. You don't have to go brownie batter if that doesn't excite you as much. We did the cake batter thing a couple weeks back. That's also good. You can go to the OG staples themselves, right? The Doug Bransons of the Built Bar, if you will. Just overall fruit and chocolate intersections like banana cream pie, if you try to find a whole bunch of boxes to check off, orange, raspberry, or just straight up plain old chocolate. All of it's very good. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Let's continue to wish and daydream about a possibility of having DeAndre Ayton in a Hornets uniform coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
We need Mitch Kupchak to throw a party like Sam Presti. Can he party like Presti? And Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, but who are you going to get to perform? Because remember, they got Nas.
They did get Nas. Man, who is Mitch Kupchak getting to that party to perform? Can we get Nelly?
No.
Master
P.
Yeah,
I hate you right now.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I'm just going to say this right now, Walker. Yeah. Things are not looking great for the Mason Plumlee segment. We've been trying. We've been desperately trying to get to his, I don't know how desperately, but we've been trying to get to his player recap. It will be coming, but now you threw in these DeAndre Ayton fake trades that we're about to talk about. So that's going to dominate. I think Mason Plumlee is going to get the axe again.
We did this with Jalen McDaniels, I think, 2 years ago, where we tried to get to his player capsule, and then eventually, I don't even think we ever got to it. We are going to get to Mason Plumlee's at some point. We've gotten better about keeping our promises. We used to be awful. In fact, if we promised we would do something, you could go ahead and guarantee that it wasn't going to happen. That's not true anymore. We've grown as a podcast.
That's right.
So we're going to get to Mason Plumlee. Just our
Promise.
promise of getting to him that day, I don't know if I would take that as gospel. It's usually the next day after that. We'll see. But I got fake trades. I got excited. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that we could get you some fake trades and Brandon Clean sound. Make sure you go check out Locked On NBA Big Board real quick. Host Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter is joined by Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Leif Tolan, giving fans an in-depth look into the NBA draft, mock draft, player rankings, and of course, Big Boards. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let's get to that other soundbite that we have from Brandon Clean of Locked On Suns, talking about still some of the issues he might have with Deandre Ayton.
Oh, yeah, you want to get to that? Oh, I'm sorry, I was not paying attention.
What were you doing? You were reading something else.
Well, I thought no, okay, here's what happened. I thought we were doing fake trades, and I was looking through, I'm telling you, because people that are watching could see I was looking down at my little console here. I was thinking about what sound I wanted to use, because you're going to throw these fake trades at me, and I wanted to say whether I would take the trade or not take the trade. And I've decided, before we get to this clean sound, I've decided that if I like the trade and I want to do it, I'm going to play this.
Let's play some basketball!
And if I don't like the trade, I'm going to play this.
I call that a trap.
Okay, we good?
That's a great one. The second one. James Borrego and Mitch Kupchak. They are so matter of fact at explaining the basketball to 5-year-olds. Yes, that's very good. Let's play the Brandon Clean sound and then go to the fake trades, because he's going to warn you. He might try to tell you or not if this is going to be a trap. So before we get into fake trade stuff, we have to be fair to people that are concerned about the idea of Deandre Ayton and Charlotte. So let's play that. Let's play that.
I don't think he's answered the doubts. I think it's perfectly reasonable for the Suns to still have doubts about his intensity, his focus, his drive. I don't think you don't get to where Deandre Ayton is in his professional career without it being at a very high baseline. I think it dips below that baseline at times, and I think that it doesn't often soar above that baseline. I think a few things over the first few seasons of his career show us that those questions have not been answered. First of all, Monty's first season here, DeAndre Ayton got suspended. I don't think that Ayton still, after 4 seasons, has ever had what I would consider a great regular season from start to finish from a intensity standpoint. You know, he's not been a guy who has this aggressive scoring edge. On top of that, I feel like you might get a month from Ayton where he's awesome like that. He's doing it on both ends. He's grabbing every single spare rebound. He's scoring like a bat out of hell. And then you might get 2 weeks where he looks very ordinary. I don't think he's had a regular season where you're just thrilled with him on a nightly basis. The best players are like that. Max players are like that. All-stars are like that.
Okay, all fair points by Brendan Clean. I will just, as a counterpoint, I will say that in the one game that Deandre Ayton played against the Charlotte Hornets, he dropped like 16 and 15, was dominant. And I would take 2 weeks. We got, you know how many weeks of bat out of hell we got out of our center rotation this season? Any guesses? Any guesses of how many weeks of bat out of hell we got? Any guesses?
That does kind of describe Montrezl Harrell, though, right? I mean, I'm not saying he's scoring at that level. That does seem to fit the bill.
Answer, okay, you're talking a lot, and the answer is 0. There's a lot of words that you just used to say 0 weeks of bat out of hell out of the center position. So if you got a few weeks, that would be an overall improvement. Anyway, go ahead and throw these fake trades at me.
No, it's true. It's true. And plus, he's 23 years old, and it's not like if you're not getting that from DeAndre, are you going to get that in return? You know, Miles Bridges had slumps. No, I mean, that's just how it was.
A big 3-point shooting slump.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about this one first. Let's give some love to Jack Simone. I think he listens to the show every once in a while. Maybe I made that up. If not, we still love you, Jack. Thank you so much. I don't know you, but we love you anyway. Jack Simone of Hoops Hype and At the Hive. Charlotte receives DeAndre Ayton. This is a 3-team trade, by the way.
Oh, love a good 3-teamer.
Yeah. Oh no, they're great. Charlotte receives DeAndre Ayton. Mm-hmm. The Suns receive Christian Wood from Houston.
Okay.
and Kelly Oubre from Charlotte. The Rockets
That would be a reuniting, by the way. Kelly Oubre did play
and I don't know if Kelly would be thrilled about that. Maybe he would. I don't know. The Rockets receive PJ Washington, the 15th overall pick, and a 2026 second round pick. So to try to simplify this, the Hornets would be giving out PJ Washington, Kelly Oubre, a 15th overall pick, and I don't think it was specified where the second round pick was coming from. But those three things are the big stuff, right? And then we get Deandre Ayton in return. What do you say about that?
Yeah, so I don't think that Kelly would like to be reunited with Phoenix. He didn't have a lot of great things to say, and they probably didn't enjoy the time either. But the thing to note is that contract of Kelly's is partially guaranteed. So if Phoenix was looking to do some cap machinations, that could be a piece that they would actually like in return and to get rid of him. I would say this one's kind of an easy one for me.
Okay.
Let's play some basketball.
Yeah, we're taking that trade.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you could play Fergie for me too. I would do it. The 15th overall, PJ, Kelly, because losing Kelly, that's nothing, right? Like this is money matching stuff here with Kelly. And this is, something valuable for another team. Maybe we would value it for him not being a guaranteed contract. This is where I pretty much am, Doug. It's PJ is the most valuable player I think I'm willing to give up and still do this trade for DeAndre. I don't think I'm doing it for Miles. And my love for PJ, man. It is going to hurt. It is going to hurt so bad to watch him leave. I still would do it. I would still do it for DeAndre Ayton. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Well, it would hurt, but at the same time, I think if you're trying to take your heart out of this a little bit and letting your mind go crazy with this, you're thinking, hey, this is a player that the Hornets organization helped to develop and that improved, and now you are cashing in on that value. It's what the Hornets of the 90s and aughts used to do all the time, is take a player that improved under their system. And there were some higher profile players, to be fair, but PJ, that would be a situation where you are flipping that for better value. It would be a good situation for PJ. He would get to compete in the Western Conference. I mean, that Suns team's not going anywhere. I'm not going to cry. It's not like you're taking it. Look, if you trade PJ to Sacramento, then I'm a little bit depressed about the fact that PJ has to go play in Sacramento, but he gets to go compete in the West. Congrats.
And PJ, I think, is a great playoff player too, right? I mean, that guy can play some small ball five. He's
we don't know. we have very little evidence, unfortunately.
Well, actually, he was the only one that showed up in this play-in game. We did see it from him. So at least play-in experience. All right, this one is proposed by Evan Sidery of basketballnews.com.
Yeah, he used to do Locked On Suns. So he's familiar with that organization.
So an alumni. There you go. All right. He says Charlotte receives DeAndre Ayton and Phoenix receives Terry Rozier, PJ Washington, and draft compensation. I don't think he gives details to this. So just for the detail for you to answer, I'm going to go with the 15th overall pick. So just repeat it. Charlotte gets DeAndre, Phoenix gets Terry Rozier, PJ Washington, and the 15th overall pick. Are we playing basketball, Doug?
Oh, man,
I call that a trap.
I call that a trap. I think it's too much. I mean, because then, how do you go about replacing all of that? It's going to be really tough to replace both that scoring and what PJ gives you in terms of versatility, clutch scoring. I don't know. It just seems like too much for me.
Play Fergie for me.
Oh, boy.
I'm doing it.
Let's play some basketball.
Look, I'm selling high on Terry. I'm getting off the money. That way you free up some of your payroll to fit. I know.
Of course, yeah. This was an automatic. I should have just played it twice for you.
Let's play some basketball.
I'm ready to play. I'm getting off of that contract. I'm going to try to create some more payroll for Charlotte to be a little more flexible because that contract hadn't even kicked in yet. I just want to remind people it's 4 more years now, right? Didn't play on that contract last year. Now is when it starts. PJ Hurts, 15th overall. I'm willing to try to parlay that into DeAndre Ayton. And plus, the other thing about having these draft picks go out to Phoenix, Doug, is the fact that they just can't continue to add all of these young picks to the roster. At some point, you're going to run out of room and might as well parlay this into DeAndre Ayton to fix the center problem. So, yes, I'm playing basketball. This one was sent to us via text by David Walker. So I didn't hear this, but this is what he said was discussed between Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo on The Ringer. Charlotte receives DeAndre Ayton and Cam Payne. Phoenix receives Terry Rozier and the 13th pick. What? I saw that and I was like, are you kidding me? Yes. Play Fergie until we're done with the podcast.
Let's play some basketball.
I don't even know how Phoenix would be receptive to this. This isn't even real, right? Like DeAndre Ayton and Cam Payne in exchange for Terry Rozier and the 13th pick. That doesn't even compute for me, Doug. I don't know how good you feel.
And that's so, it's so easy to throw these trades out. And it's one of these situations, Bill Simmons made the who says no kind of famous. Who says no? Well, Phoenix. Like Phoenix immediately, they don't it's not even that they say no, it's that they just don't even answer the phone. They don't even take it seriously.
Right.
That's just not going to be enough. Unless the only way I would foresee something like that happening is if they've really misjudged the market for DeAndre Ayton. If what we just played from Brendan Clean has, reverberated around the league, around front offices, and front offices have, collectively decide, no, it's not, DeAndre Ayton is not going to be an all-star, is not worth the risk. We're going to have to give him a max contract because there are not a lot of those center prospects out there. So we're just going to overpay. And then, Charlotte gets to kind of come in, and make a deal. I just don't foresee that happening because there are too many other teams that have the same need that Charlotte has. And some teams have even a little bit more cap space to wiggle around in. The Hornets are going to have to wheel and deal.
You have to love Mark Williams or Jalen Duren if he falls. And now there's so much hype around Mark Williams because of his combine measurements, because he's huge, because he's also a good player at Duke. And we know Jalen Duren is a guy that's even considered highly more so than Mark Williams. That they have to love one of those guys, put him at center, and they have to love Terry Rozier, which, with that team, you're talking about Chris Paul, at least for the now, and Devin Booker, Terry coming off of the bench. I mean, I don't get that either. I don't even know how that even happens, if that's real. All right. This one is proposed by Walker Mail from the Locked On Hornets podcast before we move on to the third one. This one is the Hornets receiving DeAndre Ayton at the max. So let's say his contract coming in for the Charlotte Hornets. This is a sign and trade.
Yeah.
His contract would be $33 million a year for 4 years. Straight up for Miles Bridges.
Yeah.
Miles Bridges, 4 years, $30 million a season, going over the other way. Who would you now? I get, one team is paying one, the other one's another, right? So like, do you want DeAndre? Let's just say they would be making those contracts. DeAndre would be making a lot more for Phoenix because he could be making max like 175 with the Suns. His max is like 136, I think, with another franchise. So would you rather have Miles at 4 years for 30 or DeAndre at 4 years for $33 million a season?
It's obviously a tough call. Yeah. I think I would feel more comfortable with giving a max contract to DeAndre Ayton, honestly, than I would feel comfortable giving the full max deal to Miles Bridges. Both considering, the number of players that possess the skill sets that each player possesses. I think it's going to automatically increase the value proposition for DeAndre Ayton. So I would feel more comfortable in that way. And honestly, I think a lot of the argument against moving Miles Bridges is the relationship that he's already developed with LaMelo Ball, and you don't want to break that up. But at the same time, I mean, I would break it up if it meant that you could give an automatic lob threat like DeAndre Ayton to LaMelo Ball. I think he gets over it really quick when he understands like all of the things that he can do with DeAndre Ayton. It's such a tough call because, again, as I said before, if you do this, you really are betting on Gordon Hayward staying healthy because you're going to need his production at that point.
Or you're betting on the ability to flip him for some other wing help,
which I think is risky. Like, yeah, I would be shocked if that happens. Okay. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that if we come on the air with a breaking news live YouTube hit and Gordon Hayward's been traded for anything close to equal value and not pennies on the dollar, then I will say I am shocked.
Yeah. I'm not doing it. I'm keeping Miles.
call that a
You're
trap.
doing it essentially, right? Like you're playing basketball.
I'm reluctant.
You're
Yes, this is I can't make Fergie sound reluctant, unfortunately. I wish there was some like middle ground. I don't have it. I don't have the sound. But just imagine when Fergie says this, she says it reluctantly.
Let's play some basketball.
Maybe we could play the hook from Big Girls Don't Cry from Fergie because she's going with it. She's sad, but she's gonna move along. And that's how you operate with this trade. She's sad to see Miles Bridges go, but she's going to hold her tears because better days are on the horizon.
And I'm serious about this one because you know how the YouTube commenters love me and I love the YouTube commenters and I love to be loved by the YouTube commenters. I know saying this is not a popular opinion, but I do believe in. I don't know.
You might have convinced people. They love you.
No, I've been I've been looking at the Twitters and they do not want to get rid of Miles Bridges. Yeah, but I really believe this. I really believe this would work, and I believe that the Hornets would figure out a way to replace the things that Miles Bridges has given them, and I think it's a less risky maneuver to give DeAndre the max than Miles.
I would understand it. I wouldn't hate it. I'm probably paranoia setting in. I'm keeping Miles. Plus, when we talk about that drive, that's one thing that you can invest in with Miles. Miles cares a ton. I'm not saying DeAndre Ayton doesn't. I don't know anything about DeAndre Ayton. We just heard from Brandon Clean. We know about the debacle that took place with that last game against Dallas. On the other hand, if you go through his game log in the postseason, each of the last 2 years, it's insane. The guy doesn't shoot anything less than 60% a game, and he averages like 17 points per game. He's crazy. Plus, he can defend in space. He's a center that doesn't get played off of the floor and still protect the rim. Which he's a freak, man. There's a reason. Look, Luka Doncic should have been number 1 overall pick. We get that. DeAndre Ayton had freaky ability, and it's why I didn't think it was absolutely bonkers for Phoenix to take him. It's proven to be that it was bonkers. But either way, love me some DeAndre. Just can't quite give up Miles Bridges.
Everyone always underrates the change of scenery, and also I think underrated aspect of this idea would be just shaking up the roster. And I think it would impact the players who remain with the Charlotte Hornets to understand that, hey, this organization is willing to do whatever it takes to put the necessary roster together. And if you don't perform, you could be the next one that's shown the door as the Hornets try to get to a playoff series.
Why does our crawl say, do you remember Lord Byron Mullins?
I think it's important. I think it's important that we always understand what Lord Byron Mullins did to LaMarcus Aldridge on that sacred night when he went sky high. He's still in the air. He's still flying through the air. Lord Byron Mullins.
Yeah, you talk about random. We had not talked about that at all. I don't know why that was on the crawl, but there it is. All right, let's get to some of your questions coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. We're going to give some advice on whether you should name your dog a certain Hornets player. We're going to answer a bunch of fun questions coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast, and we appreciate you for listening. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number 1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures bets. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. Bet online where the game starts. Let's get to your questions coming up next. Locked On Hornets.
This is Locked On Hornets.
Then I clicked on M. Thomas. I'm like, who the hell is M. Thomas? Matt Thomas is his name.
NBA legend Matty Thomas. Matt
he
Thomas. I'm pretty sure Matt Thomas served me at an Applebee's the other day.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Let's get to some of your questions now, Doug. I'll let you ask these. I know you've collected all of them from YouTube, from Twitter, at The Hive, or not at The Hive. We need to take credit for our own work here. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm giving it out. I think Hive Live is the hashtag you need to use. Doug, why don't you ask some of the questions people have sent in?
All right, yeah. Tweet us at Locked On Hornets on Twitter with the hashtag Hive Live at ZBird.
Yeah, go ahead. Check their workout too. It doesn't matter.
At ZBird33 asks, are you confident enough that we will re-sign Miles Bridges to where you name a puppy after him? I like this, by the way, the puppy line. It's not the jersey line. Would you buy a Miles Bridges jersey? No. Would you name your new dog? This dog is going to be around Probably. I mean, if it's
Hopefully
a big
forever,
dog,
Doug. No, but hopefully forever. The dog's.
I mean, we're talking realistically 9-10 years.
Hey, he can go to. That's still under. Even being realistic,
It's a
I don't
small
want to talk
dog.
about this anymore. Let's just ask whether he should name the puppy after Miles Bridges. I think you can. I think you can do that with a lot of comfort. I don't think Mitch Kupchak is going to go out and say it is their intention to bring Miles Bridges back if they weren't going to go ahead and make sure that gets done. He wouldn't say that about PJ. He wanted to praise him, say he did a lot of good things for us this year. He embraced every role we asked of him. But when asked about Miles Bridges, he said it is our intention to bring him back. We think he's a big part of our future. Yeah, little vague. You'd still probably get away with moving him after that. I still think Mitch Kupchak wants to keep him. All reports are that Charlotte is going to bring him back. I think you can name the puppy after Miles Bridges.
Well, look, I mean, you can intend to do a lot of things, Walker. Every time I go onto this show, I intend not to interrupt you, but I can't help myself. So
do you though?
Okay. Maybe not. So anyway, I think that you should not, if you ZBird33 are thinking about this, I would say don't do it. I also would have a counter question for you. What are you trying to name the puppy Miles? Are you trying to name the puppy Bridges, or are you trying to name the puppy Miles Bridges?
Maybe Sky for Sky Miles, just something within the realm.
Yeah, so okay, there we go. If you want to keep it vague as like an homage to Miles Bridges, then I say go for it. But I think a big decision like this, you're going to because what you don't want to do is feel sad when you look at the puppy, right? I mean, you don't want to feel that sadness, that loss when you look at the puppy. You want to feel happy, and so I would say, maybe if you want to buy a jersey, I think that's fine. But a puppy, I'm a little questioning on that. So, all right, next question comes to us from Russell. Russell asks, who would you rather have, Miles Turner, or Deandre Ayton? Assuming we ship either Gordon or Terry, plus the 2 picks, maybe one more player in the deal, and their contracts, assuming Ayton gets close to what Gordon is making now, Turner is an unrestricted free agent next summer. So Ayton get close to the max. You ship either Gordon or Terry, plus the 2. I don't know if you can ship both of those picks.
It just feels like Russell's trying to cover his bases, like trying to basically say, hey, Locked On Hornets, answer the spirit of the question.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, I understand. No, I just want to clarify. Like, I don't think under the rules they can move both of those picks. I think there's some kind of issue because they've traded some picks in the past, and there's all these rules about like how many picks you can trade. It all gets very confusing, but I don't think they can trade both the picks at the same time. But yes, the spirit of the question really is all that under consideration. Gobert, Turner, or Ayton. Yeah. What do you think?
I would have Ayton number 1. I would have Miles Turner number 2, and I would have Rudy Gobert number 3. Yeah, I think DeAndre Ayton, his age, his defensive ability, offensive ability, all that good stuff, considering the price that you would have to pay him as well. I'm taking DeAndre Ayton number 1. I'm taking Miles Turner number 2. Wow. He's on a pretty fair contract, and you're not going to have him locked in. The Rudy Gobert stuff, he's good, right? Like, he's an awesome defender. I get all of that. It's money for me, Doug. It's a lot of money. It's going to eat a ton of the payroll. He's getting older and older. I mean, he's like 32. Is he? Or maybe he's not that old. I forget how old he is. But Rudy Gobert is going to be last on. He's 29. So yeah, not 32, but 29, going to be 30. So that's some of the reasons as to why making $40 million a year. It's so much. That's why I have Rudy last.
I'll make this quick. It's a flip flop for me, baby. Gobert first. Then, not a complete flip flop. I'm going to go Gobert first, Ayton second, Turner third. Okay. Turner injury thing scares me. I don't care how good the deal is. If you're not going to see that guy through, that scares me. Ayton, the reason why I put Gobert first is because he has proven he can do it in the regular season. There's no commitment issue there. He is going to immediately solve the issue. He's going to get you to 50 wins. Yeah, you've got to figure some stuff out in the playoffs. Fine, that's fair. But he's going to get you a decent seed in that playoffs. There's a guarantee with Gobert that is not 100% guarantee with Ayton.
Okay.
There you go.
Let's go to the next question. Which one?
Last one. Here we go. Again, tweet at Locked On Hornets with hashtag HiveLive. We'll get your question on the air. Eric says, if I listen to Mitch's interview and drink when he says, will I die? Keep up the good work. Can anyone get an interview with MJ so he can pick his brain and convince him to build a good relationship with Melo? Also, to add Jello to the NBA roster.
To try to help out that relationship. We've squeezed in a couple of LiAngelo questions in the last 2 weeks.
People want to know. Happened. It's on people's mind.
I don't know what I'm asking there. Are you going to get drunk? I think probably. Yeah. He likes to go, I like the pauses more so. I think that's a common theme of Mitch Kupchak.
He's thoughtful.
Very broken up speech from Mitch Kupchak. If you take a drink after every pause
deliberate.
Yeah, that's
thoughtful.
Exactly right.
Jello, look, it's not happening. I'm sorry. I hate to break everyone's heart that watches this podcast and waits for us to say that LiAngelo is the second coming of LaMelo. It's not happening. It's a great guy to have on the practice squad, great guy to play in the G League. But if he were on this roster, he would immediately get picked apart. He would be the opposing team would zero in on him. He just nothing that I've seen in summer league or in the little that I've seen him play in G League illustrates for me that you should play him over any of the rookies that they've accumulated through the draft over the past couple of years.
Hey, one thing I will say, he did play it like significantly better in summer league than I thought he would.
Sure.
He was good.
This is not a slight. It's not. It's not a slight. I'm just trying to bring some realism to this thing.
For sure. Please do that, Doug. That's what you do best with this podcast. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. Make your second listen Locked On NBA. From the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals, Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.